Hi, so tonight I want to talk about what you deserve to know about your MRI that your doctor isn't telling you. And this is one of my biggest pet peeves about the medical field is that the practice in some areas is very far behind the research and what we actually know about pain. And what we know about pain is that just because a structure is ruined or damaged doesn't mean that that structure itself is the cause of the pain, and the only way to get rid of the pain is to fix the structure. Oftentimes, pain is so much more complex than that. Something isn't broken and something doesn't always need to be fixed. And I have printed off and I've read these articles many times, but I wanted to share what they actually mean in general terms because I think it's really important. So the first one I want to talk about, they took over 3,000 people and they imaged them. And these 3,000 people had no pain. The fact that it's 3,000 people is really important because when it's found in 3,000 people, you really can't make it up. So what they found is that disc degeneration occurs in 37% of 20-year-olds. And it increases in prevalence all the way up to 96% in 80-year-olds. So that means if you're 80 years old and you get your spine image, you're going to have disc degeneration. Does that mean that it's causing your pain or your problems? No, it means it's present. It's kind of like as you get older, you get wrinkles, right? So one of the ways to think about this is it's kind of like wrinkles on the inside. Just because you get wrinkles on your face doesn't mean your face has pain. Degeneration in your discs can be similar to wrinkles, and it doesn't mean that that's going to be causing your pain. I also want to talk about disc bulges because this is huge. I see so many people who have had an MRI and their doctor is like, you have a disc bulge at L4 to L5, but yet none of their distal or radicular, which is the radiating pain that goes down their leg. So L4 to L5 has a specific pattern. Their pain does not match that pattern, but yet their doctor tells them their disc bulge is causing their pain. And it happens all the time, and it really, really ticks me off. So disc bulges occur in, let me find the words. So in people who are 20 years old, who are completely asymptomatic, 30% of them have a disc bulge. No pain, and they have a disc bulge. Let that sink in. So if you go to the doctor and you get an MRI and you have a disc bulge, that does not mean that disc bulge is the cause of your pain. That disc bulge could have been there before you had the pain, and the pain could be caused by something completely different. And that number also increases as you get older. So 84% of people 80 years and older have a disc bulge and they have no pain. So when you go to the doctor and they say, and you have back pain and they're like, oh, you have a disc bulge, there is no way to know if you had that disc bulge before you had the pain or after you had the pain unless you got the image done both times. So just because it's there does not mean you have pain. And these findings are not just related to the back. They find them in knee arthritis, in shoulder labral tears, in hip labral tears, in all of the joints of the body. Just because there is degeneration there does not mean the degeneration is causing the pain. Degenerative changes are normal as you get older, and pain is more complex than something is broken and we need to fix it. The other article that I want to touch on is they had one person, and this is really, really interesting. One person, 10 different MRI centers. Of those 10 different MRI centers, I gotta find the part I highlighted. They did not find none of the findings, so only one finding was found. Like the same finding was found in a couple of the different studies, and across all of the studies, so 0 interpretive findings were reported in all 10 MRIs. So of those 10 MRIs, there was not one of the same findings that showed up in every single MRI. In fact, there was 49 different findings across the 10 MRIs. So that should give you caution. Like if you go and get an MRI, honestly, if you don't like it, go somewhere else the next day. You'll get a different result. And whatever you get on that result is going to depend on what the doctor is going to do to treat you, because they don't always check to make sure that your symptoms match up with what's found on the MRI. I've seen too many patients referred to physical therapy with a disc bulge or whatever when their clinical presentation does not agree with the MRI and the doctor wants to treat with surgery based on the MRI. It really, really ticks me off to see it as much as we do because the research is further ahead than this, but yet it's happening all the time. So the upshot of this is if you get an MRI make sure, get a second opinion. Don't go with that first opinion. Make sure you see a doctor who knows what they're talking about and knows what they're doing, because people don't always need to be fixed. Pain is much more complicated than that. In fact, the last point I want to touch on is they've recently done studies back in like 2015 where they study the imaging of the brain. So they take an fMRI, which means they can see which areas of the brain light up when they cause the animal's pain. So they intentionally cause harm to the animals to see what areas of the brain are activated when they're doing that. What they find is, because pain it's not one area of the brain, it's multiple areas of the brain working together. But what they find is the people who rate that they have higher levels of pain have higher amounts of fMRI activity in their brain. So when you have more pain, you really legitimately have it, but it's something that's going on in the brain that's what lines up with the intensity of pain that someone says they have. So people they did the same stimulus too. So they did it in animals and they looked at the imaging in the brain, but they did it in humans and looked at imaging in the brain too. And the people who had a lot of pain, their brains lit up like a Christmas tree kind of. The people who didn't have that much pain, not much activity going on up there. So there's something that goes on with pain that's more complex than just the structural part. There's things that go on in the nervous system. It's very, very intertwined. And this is why lifestyle factors like sleep, diet, exercise, all that stuff is so important, because that influences what goes on in the brain. So the main point of this is, if you get an MRI, get a second opinion, make sure it really is true if they want to do surgery based on your MRI, because a lot of the times you can alter symptoms and pain without surgery. Surgery isn't always the answer. And the second point is that pain is more complex than just the structural finding itself. It's a very complicated interaction of many things going on in the body, and no one completely understands it, and anyone who says they do isn't telling you the truth. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you found it informative. It's one of the things in physical therapy that I'm really, really passionate about, people actually knowing, because I think it can make a world of difference in their care. Have a good night, everyone.